Let's get physical, physical. Okay, so that is the first coping skill that you can use as a self-harm alternative, but I've got 4 more that I'll be explaining right after this. Getting physical is really awesome because oftentimes when we are struggling with an urge to self-harm or we've already engaged in self-harm behavior, it's because our physical responses to our emotional or perceptive experiences are kind of going a little haywire and out of control. We've got to discharge all those physical responses and energy in a healthier way. So you can get physical by moving your body. This can be doing some sort of exercise or dancing. It could be stretching or just moving, walking around. But doing something physical like that can be really useful and helpful. Another way that you can engage your physical sensations is using any of these self-soothing strategies. So that is using one or more of your 5 senses: sight, sound, smell, taste, or physical touch, and incorporating in a coping strategy that helps to settle and soothe your physical responses. So one of my favorites, I think y'all know, is drinking water. Drinking water is really great because it not only helps keep you hydrated, which keeps your skin all nice and fresh, but it also has calming properties that can actually settle and calm your physical responses to stress or discomfort. I'm curious, what are some ways that you get physical? Let us know in the comments. The second thing that you can do is to change your environment. So oftentimes our environment gives us sort of behavioral or reminder cues of what's to come next. It's one of the reasons why they say that if you want to get into working out when you first wake up, to put your gym bag and gym clothes right next to your bed. It's right there, it's easy to use, and then you can remember like, oh yeah, I wanted to do that. Planning out your environment in a way that will limit or eliminate your access to any of the tools that you usually use for self-harm or reminders that could trigger a self-harm urge or behavior will make a huge difference. So one of the easiest ways that you can do that is to actually hand them over to a family member. I know that feels like a little unsettling because if you don't have your tools, what will you do when you get that urge? I hope you use one of these coping skills instead. So just changing your environment or your access to some of these reminders or tools is not going to necessarily make the urge go away, but it could help limit or eliminate you acting on that urge. When you can like sit and move through it and not have to do anything, it can actually reinforce the idea that your intensity of your response will change on its own over time. It's really cool. So another way that you can change up your environment is you can also incorporate different coping skills or strategies around your room. Like I happen to have these really cool pillows. They're sequin and you can rub them and play with them. It's something that again incorporates in that physical skill that we talked about a little bit earlier. Any sort of healthy coping skills that you want to make use of instead. If you need any strategies or tools for them, have them handy. Another alternative to self-harm that you can try is to buddy up. Having a friend, and whether they are an accountability partner or just somebody who is there to vent to or get additional support and encouragement from, can be really useful and helpful. It's one of the reasons why I love running my teen growth therapy groups, because when you know that you are not alone and other people are in the struggle with you and that they are getting through it with you, it can be really motivating and encouraging. When I was just graduated from grad school, I did a program called Mindfulness-Based Stress Reduction. Prior to that, I had a really difficult time trying to meditate. I just couldn't sit still. My mind would go bonkers. I totally thought that I was doing it wrong. But being in that group setting with other people who were going through learning about this and using it for themselves totally changed and shifted my experience and perspective with this. Engaging in some sort of group therapy or some other social group can be really encouraging and helpful for you too. Which leads me right into my next point, and that is to keep talking. It's really easy that when we are on our healing journey and we are trying alternatives to self-harm that are healthier, to feel really discouraged and demotivated and maybe even ashamed if we slip up along the way. Nobody is expecting perfection, at least not from a helpful standpoint. This isn't meant to be an excuse or a reason to self-harm, but if you happen to have a slip up, I want you to keep talking to others for that additional support. The more that you can talk about it and get helpful support and feedback, the better your journey will be, because you'll start to realize that you have it in you already. You just need some habit building and maybe some encouragement and support from others, and you're not going to get that without talking about it with other people. And if all else fails, one of the best things that you can do is to actually just take a time out. So remember when you were like a young child and you'd get in trouble, or you were having kind of like an emotional outburst or something? It's really common for a parent, a caregiver, a teacher, somebody like that to put that kid into a time out. They're not doing that to be cruel. They're not doing that to be unkind. Most of them, I should say. Maybe some of them, but the majority of people aren't motivated by cruelness to that kid. Even though when you're that kid in timeout, oh, it's awful. It feels horribly uncomfortable. But doing that time out actually helps the emotion or the outburst move through the person in a safe environment where they're not going to inflict more harm or danger on themselves or others. And then once they are settled, they can come back and either problem solve or resume whatever activity they were doing and just keep it moving. So taking a time out like that for yourself whenever you're experiencing an urge to self-harm can be really useful and helpful too. So you can do this by literally setting a timer and say like, okay, I'm having this urge. I really want to act on it right now, but I'm going to set this timer for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever, an hour. And I'm going to do this other activity, or I'm going to sit here. Maybe you'll take a nap, and after that timer goes off, if you still want to self-harm, then maybe it's time to consider another coping strategy, or just see if it shifted or changed a little bit. When you can get into the habit of delaying acting on the urge, you're going to build up those other coping skills and healthy alternatives that can work just as useful as self-harm can for that relief. It just takes a little more effort to retrain your brain to structure it that way, but once you do, it should get easier the more and more that you do this. I personally like throwing on a movie or like watching a TV series, Netflix, Prime, all those things. They love to autoplay the next episode, so sometimes you don't even realize how long you've been sitting there, and then you're like, oh yeah, that's like not even a concern of mine anymore. So whatever you do what works for you. If you're looking for even more helpful self-harm alternatives that aren't necessarily distraction, you can check out the video on your screen right over here. It's one of my favorites. If you found the information in this video useful and helpful, please share it. You never know who you could be helping. Thanks for watching.